people at the airport froze when the Navy SEAL's dog suddenly lunged, sprinting through the terminal before leaping straight into a baby stroller. Passengers screamed. The mother staggered back, clutching the handle with shaking hands. "Get him off my baby," she cried, her voice cracking. But Atlas didn't stop. He growled deep, muscles coiled, blocking the stroller like he was guarding something no one else could see. Officers rushed toward them, thinking the dog had lost control, until a sharp, metallic click sounded beneath the baby blanket. Atlas tore the blanket away. The entire terminal gasped. Inside the stroller was a blinking device, cracked open and empty. Everyone thought they were seeing a bomb, but the truth was far stranger, because the bomb wasn't meant to explode. It was meant to release something. Stay with us. This story's only beginning. Like and subscribe to follow this unfolding miracle. Atlas moved before Elias even sensed the shift. One instant, the German shepherd stood calmly at his side. 4 years old, sable coat gleaming under the airport lights, amber eyes scanning the crowd with the quiet intelligence that had saved lives more times than Elias could count. And the next, Atlas lunged. The leash whipped from Elias's hand. A blur of muscle and instinct tore across the polished floor of Atlantic Gateway Airport. Passengers screamed. A cup of coffee crashed to the ground. A man stumbled aside, shouting something Elias didn't process. He only knew one thing. Atlas never ran like this unless something was terribly wrong. Elias sprinted after him, boots thudding hard, breath sharp. His graphite bomber jacket flared behind him, revealing the broad, raked raw frame of a retired Navy SEAL, 45 years old, hair streaked with gray, jaw shadowed with 3 days of stubble, and a scar like a pale thread down the left cheek. A man who had seen too much, lost too much. And now Atlas was dragging him toward a nightmare he didn't yet understand. The crowd parted, reluctantly, chaotically, just enough for Elias to see it. A stroller. A simple baby stroller, pale blue, pushed by a young woman in her early 30s. She was slender, almost fragile, with tired hazel eyes and brown hair tied in a loose, messy knot. Her cream sweater clung to her like a small comfort on a long, sleepless morning. Marley Harper, a mother who had no idea what was about to happen. She looked up just as Atlas collided with the stroller. Her scream sliced the air. "What? No, my baby!" Elias shoved through the final line of people. Atlas was already on the stroller, front paws braced on the frame, body coiled with raw tension. But he wasn't attacking. He wasn't even looking at Marley. He was staring, locked, unblinking, at the soft blue blanket inside the stroller. A growl rose from Atlas's chest, low, deep, primordial. The kind of sound an animal makes when the world tips into danger. A faint beep answered him. Elias froze. Another beep followed, quicker. The crowd erupted in panic. People ran. Bags dropped. A child cried out. Security officers turned sharply toward the commotion. Marley fell to her knees beside the stroller, hands trembling. "Please, someone, he's scaring my son. I don't know what's happening." Elias reached her, eyes fixed on the stroller. "Ma'am, don't move," he said, voice steady but urgent. Atlas lowered his nose to the blanket, inhaling sharply. His hackles rose like bristles along his spine. And in the depths of his amber eyes, Elias saw something he had seen only twice before. Recognition, fear, warning. The same look Atlas had given seconds before the explosion that killed Taylor, Elias's closest friend. The same nightmare sound, the same trembling whine, the same guilt Elias carried through every sleepless night. Atlas gave that same trembling whine now. Elias's stomach dropped. It felt like time folded back on itself, like he was standing once more in that burning desert with a clock he didn't know was counting down. And Atlas. Atlas was telling him not to ignore instinct this time. The dog's entire body vibrated with urgency. Something awful waited beneath that blanket. Elias moved. "Atlas," he called softly. "Easy. Let me see." The dog did not back down. Instead, he lunged downward, teeth flashing, ripping the blanket away in one powerful jerk. Marley gasped. Several bystanders screamed. Elias saw it immediately. A baby, tiny, peaceful, oblivious, 6 months old, with soft blonde fuzz on his head and the cherubic roundness of a child untouched by fear. Baby Rowan, and, beside him, a device, small, cylindrical, metallic. A single red light blinked rhythmically. Beep, 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 beep. Not a sound a parent should ever hear near a child. Elias's breath skidded to a halt. The device wasn't familiar, but it carried an energy he'd felt before. Not a conventional explosive, not one used by military forces. Something stranger. Marley grabbed the stroller's frame. Her fingers shook violently. "What is that? What is it? I swear I didn't put anything there. I swear on my son's life." Tears streamed down her face. Elias met her gaze with steady calm. "I believe you." He crouched beside the stroller. Atlas stood guard, unmoving, teeth slightly bared at the blinking cylinder. The beeping quickened, a frantic heartbeat. Atlas pressed forward, blocking Rowan with his body. Marley sobbed into her hands. "Please, don't let it hurt him, please." Elias had seconds, maybe less. He extended a hand toward the device. "Easy," he whispered, as if speaking to the violent memory clawing at him. His fingers brushed the cold metal. The light blinked wildly, then went dark. The beeping stopped. Silence. An unnatural silence, the kind that falls right before truth emerges. Elias exhaled shakily. Officers halted mid-stride across the terminal, unsure whether they'd just witnessed a miracle or the prelude to disaster. He picked up the device, lighter than expected. Too light. He turned it in his palm, a faint rattle, a thin seam, a crack along the inner lining. He slid the top open. Empty, utterly empty. Elias stared into the hollow chamber. Something had been inside, something small, something alive, and it wasn't there now. His pulse thudded against his ribs. This wasn't a bomb. This was a cage. He lifted his gaze. Marley held Rowan tightly, her voice thick with terror. "Where is it? What does it mean? What was next to my baby?" Before Elias could answer, Atlas stepped forward and sniffed the stroller's lower frame. The German shepherd's body tightened. He followed a barely visible smear of luminescent residue near the wheel well. A soft, trembling whine escaped him. Not fear. Recognition. Elias swallowed hard. He'd heard that whine only twice in his life. Both times. Moments before something was unleashed. Atlas traced the residue across the floor, toward the terminal crowd. His nose pressed low, tail stiffened, paws moving deliberately. Following a scent. Following something no human could see. Something that had escaped. Something now loose in the airport. Elias straightened slowly, the empty device cold in his grip. And with the weight of dreadful certainty, he whispered, "The bomb wasn't meant to explode. It was meant to release. And the cage is already empty. If you believe in divine protection, in miracles that walk among us in fur and flesh, please like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Angels in Uniform. Your faith helps these stories find the hearts that need hope." The chaos of the terminal had settled into a tense, breath-held quiet. The sort of silence that wasn't calm at all, but a thin shell stretched over terror. Elias crouched beside the stroller while Atlas, tense and alert, kept his stance angled toward the widening pool of onlookers. The strange device, now cold, hollow, and cracked, rested beside Elias like an accusation from a world he never wanted to see again. A pair of security technicians hurried over, both wearing DHS patches and carrying compact UV scanners. The older of the two, a thick-set man with close-cropped gray hair and the stoic face of someone who'd spent decades seeing too much, knelt down. His name tag read R. Salgado. His dark brows pulled tight as he studied the empty device. "Looks like it wasn't meant to blow," he muttered. His partner, Dana Price, a woman in her 20s with short auburn hair, nervous hazel eyes, and a wiry frame that moved quickly but hesitantly, lifted the UV scanner. She was the kind of person who tried to swallow fear and mostly failed, but still showed up anyway. She clicked the light on. A wash of violet swept across the stroller. And then a glow, faint, irregular, pulsing. A smear of luminescent residue lined the cradle padding where the device had rested. Dana inhaled sharply. "It's biological." Salgado nodded grimly. "And recent, still active." Marley Harper collapsed to her knees beside the stroller, clutching baby Rowan to her chest. Tears streamed down her cheeks in trembling, broken streaks. "Please, please, tell me he isn't hurt. Tell me nothing touched him." But the truth was already unfolding. Dana lowered the UV light closer to Rowan's onesie. Elias watched Marley's face crumble as glowing streaks shimmered along the baby's side, thin, hair-like traces that curled like microscopic fingerprints. Marley let out a soft, devastated sound. Oh God, no." Elias moved to steady her, his voice low, steady and surprisingly gentle for a man carved from scars and survival. "He's breathing fine. Whatever touched him didn't harm him, not yet." But even as he said it, he felt Atlas's body tense again. The dog's nose hovered low, tracing the floor near the stroller wheel. His brown eyes narrowed into focus, and his breathing changed, shorter, sharper. He pawed at a tiny fissure near the base of the wheel well, a hairline crack, barely visible, but unmistakably widened from the inside. Something had pushed its way out. Something small, something alive, something Atlas recognized in a way no human could. Elias felt a cold wave wash through him. Atlas backed up a step, his tail stiff, his ears pinned, his entire posture tuned to a frequency only instinct could hear. "What is it, boy?" Elias murmured. Atlas didn't bark. He simply shifted his gaze toward the open expanse of the terminal and let out a low, rumbling whine. Not fear, warning. For a moment, Elias felt something impossible. A sensation like the air pressing down, like a memory returning without permission. It was the same feeling he'd had the night Taylor died. A premonition he had ignored. Atlas had known then. Atlas knew now. And Elias felt a whisper in his chest he hadn't felt in years. A message he tried to shake off, but couldn't. You were spared for a reason. Atlas's eyes flicked upward, as if confirming something Elias himself wasn't ready to believe. Something unseen was moving among them. Something guided, something not finished. Donna swept the UV scanner across the floor. More glowing residue trailed away from the stroller, forming a dotted path like tiny footprints fractured by panic. She swallowed hard. It escaped. Her voice cracked. Salgado leaned closer, squinting at the spreading trail. And not long ago. This is fresh. He followed the path several feet, then stopped. The glow disappeared abruptly near a cross-section of tiles. Strange, he murmured. It ends here. Elias stepped beside him, frowning. Ends? Or someone erased it? Before Salgado could respond, a security officer jogged toward them. He was young, no older than 25, with a round face, acne scars, and a stiff posture trying too hard to appear authoritative. "Sir, there's something else," he stammered. "The camera feed over this section of the terminal cut out." "Cut out?" Salgado asked. The officer nodded rapidly. "Glitched. Exactly 2 minutes ago. Static, then nothing." Elias's pulse sharpened. 2 minutes ago. The same window when the device stopped beeping, when the stroller shook, when Atlas reacted. He narrowed his eyes at the young officer. "Show me." They rushed to the nearest security kiosk. A woman sat behind the monitors. Officer Janelle Rhodes, tall and broad-shouldered with dark skin, braided hair, and an expression that suggested she handled pressure well until today. Her hands hovered rigidly over the keyboard. "Playback," Elias said. Rhodes rewound the feed. The terminal appeared calm. Families, luggage, people moving through morning routines. Then, static. A burst of white noise, a flicker of distorted shapes, and the exact moment the stroller passed through frame. Nothing. The feed dissolved into black for 17 full seconds. When the image returned, the stroller was already past the camera's field of view. Marley gasped softly behind Elias, her voice a trembling whisper. Someone did that on purpose." Dana exchanged a fearful glance with Salgado. Who would help a creature escape? No one answered, because the question no longer felt hypothetical. Something, or someone, didn't want the creature seen, didn't want them knowing where it went, didn't want anyone stopping it. Elias felt the familiar rise of adrenaline, that cold clarity that had carried him through missions meant to swallow men whole. He turned to Rhodes. "Any other angles catching the stroller from the side?" Rhodes typed quickly. "Checking now. Stand by." But before she finished, Atlas barked. A sharp, explosive sound that vibrated through Elias's sternum. The dog spun toward a crowd of passengers moving through the gate corridor. His nose pressed to the floor, then lifted toward the crowd itself. He growled, soft, but with meaning. "There," Elias said. "He has the scent." Salgado stiffened. "We need containment. If this thing is dangerous." Elias had already begun moving. Atlas pulled ahead, weaving between suitcases and legs with a sense of purpose only instinct could shape. The glowing trail had ended, but Atlas didn't need fluorescence. He tracked fear, breath, heat, pheromones, the way wilderness-born animals tracked storms and predators. Elias followed at a steady pace, eyes sweeping faces and hands, every man and woman a potential threat or witness. Marley hurried after them, clutching Rowan tightly. "Please, don't leave me out of this. If something touched my baby, I deserve to—" "Stay behind security," Elias ordered gently. "Atlas will tell us more than any camera." Atlas halted again, this time near a polished support column. Elias crouched beside him. "Do you have something?" Atlas pawed lightly at the base of the column. Elias leaned closer. A faint streak of residue, barely visible without UV, lined the metal. Dana scanned it and gasped. "It's the same signature." This was proof the creature had fled into the terminal traffic. But just as Elias began forming next steps, the overhead speakers crackled. "Attention security personnel," a voice announced. "System error detected in surveillance grid. Multiple blind spots reported. Technicians en route." Multiple blind spots. Not an accident. Not a glitch. A sabotage. Elias rose slowly, jaw tightening. Someone wanted that creature invisible. Someone was helping it. Elias looked toward the crowd, thousands of people, thousands of hiding places, and said quietly, almost to himself, "It's not just running." He glanced at Atlas. "It's being escorted." If stories of miracles, courage, and divine protection touch your heart, please like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Angels in Uniform. Your support helps these stories reach those who need faith the most. Atlas pulled hard, nose pressed so close to the floor that his breath fogged against the polished tiles. The German shepherd's muscles trembled with focus as he guided Elias toward a narrow service corridor, normally hidden behind retractable barriers. The air inside the hallway felt colder, quieter, as if sound itself held its breath the moment they stepped in. Elias followed with long, steady strides, though each step carried a weight he tried to bury. His graphite bomber jacket brushed the walls as they squeezed deeper into the technical wing. Behind him, Marley held baby Rowan close, refusing to stay far, and 2 security personnel trailed behind with UV scanners ready. The world felt smaller here, more claustrophobic, lit only by flickering overhead bulbs. A new technician, a thin, angular man with sandy blonde hair pulled into a short ponytail, hurried toward them. His name tag read C. Mendel. He had pale skin, sharp cheekbones, and narrow blue eyes that darted constantly, as though he saw danger in every angle. Years of stress lined his expression, making him look older than his early 30s. "Maintenance tech," he introduced breathlessly. "I was told there's biological residue involved. Is that accurate?" Dana Price nodded tightly. "Potentially engineered, and it escaped." Mendel paled. "If it's inside the ventilation grid, then you need to move fast. The system cycles airflow across the entire terminal every 10 minutes. Atlas growled, not at Mendel, but at the wall-mounted vent directly ahead. Elias knelt beside his partner. "Show me, boy." Atlas pawed twice, forceful, intentional. Donna swept the UV scanner, and the beam revealed a line of luminescent streaks that curved upward into the vent's metal frame. The screws had been loosened, the grate hung open by less than an inch. It was enough. Mendel swallowed hard. Something entered through there. Elias traced the streaks with a gloved finger. The residue pulsed faintly like something still alive. "It didn't just enter," he murmured. "It pushed its way in." Marley hugged Rowan tighter, her voice cracking. "If it's in the vents, does that mean it's above us, around us?" "No," Mendel replied. "It means it's everywhere." Atlas suddenly jerked his head up, not toward the vent, not toward the corridor, but toward Elias. His amber eyes locked onto Elias's with an intensity that nearly stopped Elias's heartbeat. There was something ancient, almost spiritual in the dog's gaze, a silent recognition buried beneath instinct. "You know this scent. You've smelled this before. And you survived for a reason." Elias felt the air around him thicken. He had spent years burying the memory, years trying to convince himself that the things he saw in that Black Ops desert facility were hallucinations born of trauma. But Atlas's gaze cracked the lock on that sealed mental vault. He inhaled, and the scent hit him. Metallic, clean, cold, with a faint undercurrent like ozone after lightning. The same scent from the night Taylor died. The memory ambushed him. Fire tearing through night, a shock wave punching the air out of his lungs, Taylor screaming for him to run. That explosion hadn't been a bomb. It had been something else. Something he was ordered never to speak of. Something he pretended didn't exist. He blinked hard, forcing himself back into the present. Dana's voice trembled. "Sir, are you okay?" Elias steadied his breathing. "I'm fine." But he wasn't. Atlas knew that too. The dog nudged Elias's hand, a grounding touch. Elias placed his palm on Atlas's head, scarred fingers against warm fur, and whispered, "Not this time. We're not losing anyone this time." He rose sharply. "We need access to the ventilation hub." Mendel shook his head. "The central hub is restricted. Only authorized personnel." Elias fixed him with a stare forged in battlegrounds. "Authorize it." Mendel hesitated only a moment before swallowing. "Right. This way." They moved deeper into the corridor, Donna and Salgado at their heels. The hum of machinery vibrated through the walls as they approached the main vent junction. Pipes lined the ceiling, valves hissed, and warning labels flickered with emergency lights reacting to system errors. A faint drip echoed from somewhere, a reminder that even machines could buckle under chaos. Atlas sniffed the air sharply. He lowered his head, then raised it again, snarling softly at the ductwork overhead. "Something's in there," Dana whispered. Elias nodded. "And it's not just hiding. It's traveling." Mendel hurried to the control panel, a wide metal box coated with scratches and taped over warnings. His slender fingers flew across keys as he pulled up the airflow grid. Lines of data scrolled. Airflow rates fluctuated wildly. Ports opened and closed without command. Mendel's lips parted in disbelief. Someone overrode the system. Salgado swore under his breath. "Every system?" "No," Mendel muttered. "Only the ductwork connected to Terminal C through Terminal E. It's funneling something." Elias's pulse hammered. Someone was guiding the creature. "A diversion," he said quietly. "Crowded terminals. High-density foot traffic." Dana looked sick. Why would anyone want to lead it there? Elias didn't answer, because the only answer he could think of was a nightmare he refused to resurrect. They reached the large access hatch to the ventilation trunk line. Mendel handed Elias a small flashlight. As Elias unscrewed the hatch panel, a gust of cold air rushed out, chilling their faces. Atlas leaned in, nose twitching violently. He growled and snapped at the air, teeth bared, not in violence, but in warning. Elias angled the light inside. The duct was wide, wider than standard commercial ventilation, and shaped in a way that suggested design, modifications. Something had been changed, reinforced, enlarged, like it was built for transport. A new worker hurried toward them, a bulky man with a shaved head and tattooed knuckles. He wore a reflective vest and carried a wrench nearly the size of his forearm. His name tag read Levi Crane. His square jaw and deep-set eyes made him look intimidating, but his voice held an unexpected softness. "Maintenance got your call. You need duct access?" Mendel nodded. "We need to know where the airflow is being redirected." Levi grunted, taking the wrench to remove the top bolts. His movements were steady, practiced. "This system's old, but it ain't supposed to do whatever this is." Elias pointed into the duct. "Is there a way to track movement inside?" "Only through thermal sensors," Levi replied. "But half of them have been on the fritz." "Convenient," Salgado muttered. Levi finished removing the final bolt. The hatch dropped open with a metallic clang. Atlas lunged forward and barked furiously into the darkness. It wasn't random. It was recognition. Elias shined the light farther. Luminescent residue streaked the metal interior, curved in patterns that suggested rapid crawling or slipping through at terrifying speed. Mendel stared at the glowing trail. This pattern, it's not drifting. It's deliberate. Something moved fast, and it's not just small, it's agile. "How long before it spreads across the airport?" Dana asked quietly. Mendel exhaled shakily. "If it follows the airflow cycles, less than 10 minutes. Marley gasped and held Rowan closer. tears trembling at her lashes. Please tell me it won't get to him again. But Elias no longer heard anyone. His breathing had changed, slow, cold, terrifyingly calm. The scent, that impossible metallic scent. He hadn't imagined it years ago. It wasn't trauma. It wasn't memory distorting truth. It was back. And that meant someone had never destroyed what they claimed to destroy. Someone continued experiments that should have died with Taylor. Someone still believed these creatures had a purpose. Atlas nudged Elias again, not afraid, not confused, certain. Elias whispered the truth he feared. If that smell is real, then whatever they created back then was never wiped out. If you believe in angels among us, some on 2 legs, some on 4, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Angels in Uniform. Miracles travel farther when hearts open to receive them. The shrill alarm tore through the ventilation hall like a blade, vibrating across metal pipes and echoing down every service corridor. Elias felt it in his bones before the speakers even finished the message. Security alert. Armed individuals approaching Terminal C. All personnel take immediate positions. Salgado cursed under his breath. Dana's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the UV scanner. Marley clutched baby Rowan so tightly the child whimpered, burying his face into the crook of her shoulder. Elias scanned the shadows with fierce precision. Atlas stiffened instantly, ears thrust forward, tail rigid, a sentinel ready for war. Levi Crane came barreling around the corner, wrench in hand, panting. Some guys forced past the side checkpoints, he said, voice tight. Not the usual smugglers. They're coordinated, tactical. Mendel went pale. They're after the creature? Levi shook his head darkly. Not exactly. They asked guards one question before the alarms went off. Elias's jaw set. What question? Levi swallowed. Where's the woman with the stroller? Marley staggered backward, almost collapsing. Why? Why would they want me? Elias stepped in front of her, shielding her and Rowan with a single motion, a protective instinct engraved into muscle and memory. Because you weren't just in the wrong place at the wrong time, he said quietly. Someone chose you. Someone used you. Her face broke. Used me. And my baby. Before he could answer, a rapid series of footsteps thundered down the adjoining hallway, heavy boots, synchronized, purposeful, armed men. Atlas snarled, baring his teeth. Salgado drew his service pistol in a smooth, practiced line. Dana moved behind a maintenance cabinet, trembling. Levi lifted his wrench like a warhammer, jaw clenched. Even Marley, terrified and shaking, shifted Rowan behind her body, spine straightening as if discovering a hidden reserve of strength. 3 figures appeared at the end of the hall, each wearing dark tactical jackets, faces partially obscured by masks. They were lean but muscular, their posture sharp with military precision. Leading them was a man with a shaved stripe down the middle of his scalp, creating a harsh contrast against the long dark hair tied behind him. His eyes were a cold, calculating gray, the kind that measured threats the way predators measure prey. He raised a hand. "Stand down," he said. His voice was smooth, unsettlingly calm. "We only want the woman and the infant." Elias stepped forward, voice low and lethal. "Over my dead body." The man's lips curled in a thin smile. "That can be arranged." He motioned to his men. They moved. Fast, Atlas bolted before Elias even spoke. The German shepherd launched with explosive power, striking one of the masked men mid-charge. His jaws clamped onto the attacker's wrist, twisting the firearm free. The man screamed. The sound swallowed quickly by the choking grip of fear. The moment froze in Elias's vision, a dog born of instinct, fate, and something too spiritual to ignore. Atlas's amber eyes glowed with the same fierce light that had saved Elias years ago. It felt, impossibly, like the dog was carrying out not just training, but destiny. Some protectors are chosen by men, Elias thought. Others are chosen by God. Atlas pivoted and stood between Marley and the gunman, bristling with defiance. The lead attacker stared coldly at the scene. "Even now," he muttered, "you still think you can stop what's coming." Gunfire cracked. Salgado took cover behind a conduit pipe. Levi swung his wrench into the jaw of a second assailant, dropping him to the ground. Elias charged forward with breathtaking speed, tackling the third man into the wall. Years of combat surged through him, raw, instinctual, merciless. He pinned the attacker with a forearm to the throat. "Who sent you?" The man spat blood and smiled with broken teeth. "You don't understand. The creature wasn't smuggled for profit." Elias pressed harder. Then what was it for? "To test," the man rasped. The word landed like ice water down Elias's spine. "To test what?" he demanded. The attacker coughed, choking. "Compatibility." Elias's pulse surged. "With who?" The man looked up at him with the eerie serenity of someone who believed in a nightmare. "Not with her. Not with the baby. With you." Before Elias could process those words, Atlas barked, a single fierce command that cut through the tension. The dog jerked his head toward the ventilation shaft above. There was movement inside, rapid, skittering, unnatural. Dana lifted the scanner and gasped. "It's moving fast, too fast. It's heading toward the central airflow vents." Mendel pressed his hand to his forehead. "If it gets into that hub, we lose track of it completely." The lead attacker stood slowly, almost tauntingly, now held at gunpoint by Salgado. His cold gray eyes flicked to Elias. "You're wasting time," he said. "Do you really think we care about the organism escaping?" His smile sharpened. "We fear something far worse." Elias stepped closer, rage rising. "What?" The man's voice dropped to a whisper that felt poisonous. "We fear it reaching you." Elias froze. Atlas pressed against his leg, whimpering softly, not in fear but in warning. Marley clutched Rowan and looked at Elias with terrified confusion. "Why would it want you? Why? What does this mean?" Elias didn't answer. Couldn't answer. His past, the classified missions, the unexplained behaviors of Atlas during the desert explosion, all of it pressed against him like ghosts clawing through walls. But the attacker continued with a twisted satisfaction. They engineered it to bond, to choose, to survive. And now that it's loose, he smiled darkly, it will find its way to the only host it was designed to seek. Elias grabbed him by the collar. "Tell me what you're talking about." The man only leaned closer. "You." A metal crash from overhead shattered the moment. Something was tearing through the ducts, faster than before. Dana screamed. Marley shielded her son. Salgado raised his weapon toward the ceiling. Levi tightened his grip on his wrench. And Atlas. Atlas growled at the ductwork, eyes locked on the unseen thing above, body trembling like a compass forced north by a magnetic storm. The creature wasn't running from them. It was running toward something. Elias felt the truth settle like a blade against his spine. Atlas's growl deepened as he pressed against Elias's leg, refusing to let him move. And in that suffocating silence, Elias realized. They're not afraid of losing the creature. They're afraid of it reaching me. If you believe in divine protection, guardian angels, some with wings, some with paws, please like, share, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Angels in Uniform. Miracles spread when we share them. Elias descended the grated metal stairs first, boots striking each step with the steady, trained rhythm of someone who had walked into danger far too many times. The underground technical sector beneath Atlantic Gateway Airport was nothing like the polished terminal above. Down here, the air was thick with dust and oil, lit by dim industrial lamps that flickered in long, anxious intervals. Massive pipes crisscrossed overhead like veins of a steel beast. Every sound echoed, making distance difficult to judge. Atlas stayed close, his sable coat bristling. His nose twitched without pause, pulling the air deep into his lungs as though trying to filter every molecule. The German shepherd was normally fearless, 4 years of intense training shaping him into an unwavering sentinel. But tonight, something rattled him. His paws hesitated on the cold floor, his ears flicked back more than forward. His tail, usually a confident banner of alertness, hung tensely behind him. Elias sensed every detail. Behind them, Mendel followed nervously, carrying a portable UV floodlight. The pale technician kept adjusting his glasses, his thin frame trembling with each draft of cold air. Levi Crane came next, wrench in hand, his heavy steps shaking the grated walkways. Marley stayed behind under guard near the staircase entrance. Elias had insisted she go no farther. Up ahead, the tunnel widened into a larger chamber where emergency generators hummed loud enough to vibrate the floor. The glow of luminescent residue streaked the edges of the pipes, this time brighter, thicker, almost smeared in erratic curves. Dana Price, who had joined them again with a secondary scanner, let out a shaky breath. It's denser, a lot denser. Animals only excrete this much when they're distressed. Levi frowned, wiping sweat from his brow. Or when they're getting bigger. Elias stopped. Atlas growled, low and long. Mendel lifted the UV floodlight higher. The glowing marks on the floor stretched ahead in erratic loops, not straight lines. Something was stumbling, sliding, or thrashing as it moved. Elias crouched and touched the glowing streak with a gloved fingertip. Warm, fresh. Whatever it is, Elias murmured, it's stressed, or evolving. Dana swallowed hard. That shouldn't be possible, not this fast. Elias looked at her. If it's anything like the desert prototypes, speed is exactly what they were engineered for. Her eyes widened. But the military burned the whole facility down. They destroyed everything. I watched it happen, Elias said quietly. But that doesn't mean it ended. Atlas whined softly beside him, an unusual, unsettled sound. His body lowered to the ground, shoulders hunched. Something about the scent ahead stirred fear in him. And Atlas never showed fear, ever. Elias placed a steady hand on the dog's back. Easy, boy. I'm right here. Atlas suddenly lifted his head, not toward the trail, but toward Elias. His amber eyes were wide, pupils dilated. It wasn't just instinct. It wasn't just training. It was recognition. The same look he gave the night Taylor died. The same night Elias had heard something moving inside the burning bunker. Something small. Something breathing. Something that made the air crackle like static. Atlas pressed his forehead gently into Elias's leg, a gesture he used only twice before in his life. Once the night of the explosion, and once when Elias was pulled from the rubble days later. A silent message passed between them, one that felt ancient and spiritual. This is the same thing, the same scent, the same danger. Elias's throat tightened. He whispered, I know. And Atlas moved forward again, trembling but determined. They followed the glowing trail through the chamber and into a narrower maintenance tunnel that sloped downward. The walls here were scratched deeply, long curved marks scoring through the metal oxide. Dana traced a gloved finger along one of the grooves. "These aren't tool marks, they're claws." Levi stepped beside her. "But nothing that size could have—" Mendel cut him off, voice cracking. "Look." Near the base of the pipe junction lay several soft tufts of something. Atlas approached cautiously, sniffing each tuft before recoiling with a whimper. Elias crouched down and examined the samples. Fine hairs, almost translucent, mixed with tiny iridescent flakes that caught the light when shifted. They reminded him of insect wings, but denser, more complex. Dana knelt next to him, face pale. "Hairs and scales? But that means—" Levi took a step back. No. Are you saying it's changing its biology as it grows? Who designed something like that?" Elias answered with a hollow voice. "Someone who wanted a creature that could survive anything a battlefield throws at it." Mendel hugged the floodlight to his chest like a shield. "So it's evolving?" "In a way," Elias said, standing. "It's adapting." Atlas began pacing in frantic circles, nose pressed to the floor, movements jerky. He growled at the tunnel ahead, then abruptly backed away, claws scraping the ground. His ears flattened fully. That was when Elias knew for certain. The creature wasn't just moving, it was hunting. The tunnel ahead opened into a massive metal artery, one of the primary ventilation trunks spanning the entire lower sector. The diameter was large enough for a grown man to crawl through. The surface was scratched, dented, and partially warped. Atlas approached the opening but hesitated, lowering into a crouch. He sniffed the edge of the vent, then darted backward as though something invisible had snapped at him. Dana steadied the scanner. "There's a huge spike of luminescence inside. It must be right ahead, or—" She paused. "Or pieces of it." Levi tightened his grip on his wrench. "Pieces?" Elias stared into the vent's darkness. "She means shedding. Growth requires shedding." Atlas growled violently. Elias nodded grimly. "It's larger than before." Mendel's voice shrank to a tremor. "Isn't anything going to slow it down?" Elias didn't answer, because the truth was clear. Nothing they had so far could. The tunnel carried their breath back at them, echoing like something alive. The luminescent residue looked almost smeared in desperation, forming frantic swirls on the metal as though the creature had been flailing or fighting something inside itself. Elias leaned closer to the vent. Atlas froze beside him, staring into the black. That was when it happened. A sudden metallic clang erupted from deep inside the ventilation shaft, sharp and violent. It echoed down the entire corridor, loud enough for everyone to flinch. Then, silence. Absolute silence. Atlas stepped backward, tail tucking for the first time since Elias had known him. Dana whispered, "Did it stop moving?" Levi looked upward as though expecting the ceiling to split open. Or it found something. Elias felt a cold wave spread through him, a memory he'd buried clawing back into consciousness. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "No, it's not stopping." His eyes darkened. "It's growing. If you believe in God's protection, and in the angels he sometimes sends to walk beside us on 4 paws, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Angels in Uniform. Your faith keeps these stories alive." The metallic clang that had echoed through the ventilation shaft still hung in the stale underground air. As Elias, Atlas, Dana, Mendel, and Levi moved deeper into the maintenance tunnel. The space narrowed ahead, compressing the group into a single file line. Dim yellow bulbs flickered overhead, their weak glow casting long shadows that trembled along the walls like living veins. Atlas led the way again, though reluctantly. His paws stepped lightly on the cold steel, shoulders hunched as if something immense pressed upon his instincts. His usually bright amber eyes seemed darker here, reflecting the tunnel light in tiny, uneasy glints. Every few steps, he paused to sniff the air, then retreated closer to Elias's side before gathering the courage to continue ahead. Elias noticed it all. Every twitch of muscle, every rapid breath. The dog who had faced insurgents, explosives, collapsing buildings, and lethal traps without hesitation was trembling. It was a sight that tightened Elias's chest more than any threat ever had. His own pulse quickened, an old ache flaring in the scar across his cheek. They reached a vast chamber at the end of the tunnel. A dead-end room where oversized ducts converged like the heart of an impossible machine. The low hum of airflow pulsed in uneven rhythms. The luminescent residue pooled thickly along the floor, swirling in erratic patterns as if something had dragged itself violently across the metal. Atlas froze. His claws scraped the ground as he backed away sharply, pressing his flank against Elias's leg. His body trembled. Not from fear alone, but recognition. Elias placed a steady hand on Atlas's shoulder. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm here." But even he wasn't sure it was okay. Donna held her breath as her scanner beeped uncontrollably, readings spiking off the charts. Mendel's face blanched, his glasses sliding down his nose. Levi gripped his wrench with white knuckles. Then, a soft clicking sound, barely audible, barely real. It came from the darkest corner where two large ducts met. Elias tensed. Lights. Mendel tilted the floodlight. The beam landed on a small silhouette, and the room seemed to inhale all at once. The creature was no larger than a kitten, its body slender and feline in outline, but wrong in every other way. Its skin shimmered in iridescent shades of blue and green, like scales refracting underwater light. Fine, translucent hairs lined its spine, rippling as it breathed. Its eyes, large, glass-like orbs, caught the floodlight and bounced it back in a haunting, crystalline glow. It blinked slowly. Then it looked directly at Elias. Not at Atlas, not at the group. At him, with familiarity. Dana whispered, "Oh my God, it's like it knows you." Elias didn't breathe. His throat tightened, memories flickering like fast-moving frames of a nightmare best left buried. The burning facility, Taylor shouting, the strange shape slithering through the rubble behind, the thick containment glass. A cry he never forgot. He felt that same cry now, sharp, thin, trembling in the space between heartbeats. The creature shifted, head tilting, its movements eerily gentle. Then Atlas stepped forward. His growl tore through the silence, low and commanding. The shepherd lunged, jaws opening, not to kill, but to pin, to restrain, to end the chase. For a moment, time snapped taut like a tripwire. The creature released a blinding burst of white-blue light, electric, crackling, hissing as it struck Atlas full force. Atlas yelped, a sound that ripped clean through Elias's soul. The dog's body shot backward, crashing to the ground and sliding across the metal floor. His limbs twitched once. Then he lay still. "Atlas!" Elias roared. He dropped to his knees beside the dog, hands shaking as he pressed them to Atlas's chest. The shepherd's breaths were shallow, his eyes unfocused. "No, no, not again," Elias whispered, voice cracking. "I'm not losing another one. I'm not losing you." His voice echoed sharply against the steel walls. The creature stopped moving. Its iridescent skin dimmed, its glassy eyes widened, and it stared at the sight of Elias hunched over Atlas, not with malice, not with instinct, but with something almost human, almost like memory, as if the moment triggered recognition, as if Elias's grief awakened something deep inside it. Dana, trembling, lowered her scanner. "It's reacting to you?" Levi whispered, "Like it's sorry." Elias looked up slowly, tears burning behind his eyes. He wasn't a man who cried, not since Taylor died. But now, something primal broke loose inside him. He rose to his feet, the creature tensed, shrinking back. Elias approached with deliberate, controlled steps. He shrugged off his graphite bomber jacket, revealing the reinforced blast-resistant lining beneath the fabric. "I'm ending this," he murmured, not running from it again. The creature hissed softly, backing toward the duct wall. Elias lunged with precision, born from years of Navy SEAL operations. He wrapped the jacket around the creature, pressing it tightly against his chest. The creature thrashed violently, emitting sharp pulses that rattled Elias's bones. He gritted his teeth as its struggle grew more desperate. Its scales scraped against his forearms, slicing tiny cuts that beaded with blood. Elias tightened his grip. "Enough!" The creature writhed, then abruptly weakened. Its pulses softened. Its limbs slowed. Finally, it stilled. Elias held the trembling bundle close to his chest, his breath ragged. He whispered, half a prayer, half a confession. "It's over. This time I'll do it right." But then, the creature shifted. A small head emerged from the folds of the jacket, and it stared directly into Elias's eyes. This time, not with fear, not with defense, but with recognition. Deep, old, intimate. Elias felt his heart slam against his ribs. Donna gasped. Levi stepped forward. "What's it doing?" she whispered. Elias could barely speak. "It knows me." The creature blinked once, slowly, and in a voice only instinct could understand, the silence whispered, "It didn't attack him. It remembered him. If you believe angels walk beside us, some in uniforms, some on four paws, please like, share, comment your blessings, and subscribe to Angels in Uniform. Miracles grow when we spread them." The biocontainment chamber hissed shut with a hydraulic exhale, sealing the small iridescent creature inside a transparent isolation unit reinforced with layered polymer glass. Bright medical lights cast soft gleams across its scaled body. It curled in a trembling coil, its crystalline eyes shifting between fear and uncanny sentience, flickering with colors no natural animal possessed. Elias stood just outside the chamber, chest rising and falling in slow, steady breaths as he tried to calm the adrenaline still burning through his veins. His arms still bore thin cuts left by the creature's struggle, faintly glowing from residual luminescent residue. He ignored them. His focus remained on the creature, on the silence between its breaths, on the way its gaze kept drifting toward him even after containment. Behind him, Dana adjusted the biometric monitor attached to her wrist. Her expression, a blend of fascination and unsettled awe, reflected someone who had studied anomalies her whole career, but had never met one that felt alive in such a deliberate, purposeful way. Mendel, his wiry frame stiffened by tension, kept pacing behind her, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose every few seconds. Levi stood guard near the door, wrench still in hand, though now more ceremonial than practical. Sweat glistened on his forehead, his breathing uneven as he muttered prayers under his breath. The room felt tight, pressurized, waiting. A soft whimper broke the silence. Atlas. He lay on an elevated medical cot off to the side, wires attached to his chest to monitor his heart rhythm. His thick, mocha-colored coat was ruffled, and his body still quivered from lingering shock after the bioelectric pulse. A veterinarian, a short, rounded woman in her early 50s with kind smile lines and a halo of gray curls, checked his vitals. Her name tag read Dr. Eleanor Briggs, and her presence alone seemed to steady the air. She was known in the airport for her gentle nature and steel-like calm under pressure. Atlas blinked slowly, eyes glassy but conscious. Elias rushed to his side. "Hey, buddy," he whispered, voice breaking softly. "You scared me." Atlas lifted his head an inch, tail thumping weakly once against the mattress. He nudged Elias's forearm with his nose, as if to apologize for worrying him. Elias exhaled shakily and pressed his forehead against the shepherd's. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Man and dog, soldier and guardian, connected by something deeper than words. A sudden knock at the door startled everyone. The young mother, Sarah, stepped inside holding her baby against her chest. Now that the chaos had subsided, her exhaustion was visible. Tall and slender with soft chestnut hair pulled into a messy knot, she had pale freckled skin blotched with dried tears. Her eyes, reddish, swollen, trembling, held gratitude so raw that no words could deliver it fully. "Mr. Warren," she breathed. Elias stood, offering a steadying hand as she approached. She clutched her child, little Evan, who blinked curiously at the bright room, blissfully unaware of the horrors that had threaded themselves around him hours earlier. Sarah let out a choked sob. "You saved my son. You and Atlas. You saved him. I don't know how to thank you." She reached down and touched Atlas's fur with shaking fingers. The shepherd closed his eyes contentedly at her touch. Her voice cracked. "When that thing was next to him, when I didn't know if he was safe anymore, all I could do was pray. And God sent you." Elias swallowed hard. Emotion swelled in his chest, unexpected and sharp. "You kept him alive," he said gently. "You fought for him. We just followed the trail." Sarah pressed her forehead to her son's as silent tears slipped down her cheeks. A low metallic beep echoed through the room. Dana's tablet lit up. "Elias, you need to see this." Her tone had shifted, quieter, heavier. The team gathered around her as she displayed a confidential file she had pulled from the biometric analysis. "What you captured," she said, pointing to the holographic model of the creature's DNA helix, "is not an animal. Not entirely." Elias frowned. "Meaning?" Dana hesitated before continuing. "It contains human genetic markers, highly engineered. But these markers, they aren't random. They match archived samples from a discontinued classified military biotech program." Elias's breath caught. Mendel, voice trembling, added, "Specifically, an experimental series involving enhanced resilience and instinctive recognition training. The genome signatures were derived from Navy personnel." Dana looked Elias directly in the eyes. Her voice softened. "You were in the Navy SEAL trials a decade ago, right? Project Helix?" The room felt suddenly colder. Elias didn't answer. Dana drew a slow breath, then said quietly, "Your name is in the original donor list, Elias. The creature may carry fragments of your genetic imprint." Levy whispered, "So?" It didn't just recognize him. It was born knowing him. Atlas let out a soft whine, sensing Elias's rising turmoil. The shepherd pressed his head weakly into Elias's thigh, trying to anchor him. Elias found himself unable to look away from the creature behind the glass. His past, the one he buried beneath sealed missions, dead friends, and broken promises, had come clawing back in a form he could never have predicted. The lights dimmed slightly as the chamber's biometric sensors reactivated for calibration. The creature stirred. Its scaled skin shimmered faintly. Its glass eyes opened. And slowly, very slowly, it turned toward Elias, pressing one tiny clawed hand against the glass. Elias froze. Dana gasped quietly. Levi stepped back. Dr. Briggs held her breath. Sarah clutched her child tightly. The creature exhaled. Then its tiny chest rose, matching Elias's breath in perfect rhythm, perfect sync. A connection no one could explain, not instinct, not training. Something encoded, inherited, fated. Elias's heart thudded hard, and behind him, Atlas, still weak, lifted his head and gave a single soft bark, as if acknowledging a truth they all felt, but none dared to speak. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning. If you believe that God sometimes sends protectors in fur, flesh, and miracles beyond our understanding, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Angels in Uniform so these stories of faith and courage can continue to shine. In moments like these, when danger fades and hope rises in the unlikeliest ways, we are reminded that miracles are not always loud. Sometimes they come in the form of a loyal dog, a stranger's courage, or a second chance we were never expecting. Whatever storms you face in your own life, may you remember that God often works through the people, and even the animals, He places in our path. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs faith today. Leave a comment and subscribe to Angels in Uniform so more souls can find hope. May God watch over you and bless everyone who joins us on this journey.